Welcome to The Author Next Door After Dark.
This is our monthly after-hour space where we slow things down and talk more openly about romance, relationships, and the emotional dynamics that drive stories as romance authors.
These are candid, honest, and unfiltered conversations.
Pull up a chair, grab a drink, and let's chat. Welcome to The Author Next Door, episode 54, and a sneak peek to The Author Next Door After Dark, episode 1. I'm Cassie Newell, and I'm here with my co-host, Angela Haas, and I'm just going to say cheers real quick because this is our episode After Dark, and we thought we'd do something special each month for our subscribers only. We're both authors with several books under our belts. We're romance authors, so we're going to lean in and focus on romance in these episodes. Tonight, we're opening up with the core idea. Romance is not a genre, it's a skill set. So, Angela, share with me what you have. I'm sorry, you went so fast.
Oh,
I was like, cheers.
I love these Cutwater. This one's a tequila paloma, but they have so many
Nice.
different fun, and it truly is, well, so they say. It's truly grapefruit soda and tequila, which is what a paloma is, but it's pretty, natural. I mean, not much to them, and
Awesome.
you don't have, it's just one can. You don't have to buy all the other stuff.
I have a Patrona white wine from Stephen and Walker, one of my favorite vineyards.
Ooh.
And then, because I'm a snacky girl, I had to get my Ghirardelli chocolate with it. Sea salt caramel and milk chocolate because it's yummy with wine. And I love dark chocolate with red wine. Like, that's my other fave. I'm such a foodie at heart. Like, I love certain pairings and stuff. And then I get surprised by some pairings I wouldn't expect. I don't know. Anyway, I divulge.
That's for our podcast.
Yeah, that's another podcast. But, this is a little looser. This is just you and I chatting as we do a lot on WhatsApp and back and forth. Let's talk about kind of I thought we could talk on 4 different points. And I thought, let's talk about the reframe of romance, right? That everybody writes romance. It's a skill set, and that romance is in most genres. And if we don't want to say romance, we say relationships, right? Because it doesn't have to be a romantic romance. It could just be relationships, right? I think that romance adds emotional stakes and intimacy and character motivation, but you could say the same thing for other genres. I get so excited about this topic. I'm like, there are emotional stakes. There's some type of intimacy going on. I mean, if you think about thriller and action, which I know you read a lot of, always. Doesn't that just kind of blow your mind when I say that? It happens all the time.
It does. Yeah. It absolutely does.
And do you find, because I know we were both Jack Reacher watchers, but don't you find, I mean, honestly, he's great to look at, but it is a good show story-wise too. But when there's a romantic subplot element, I kind of lean in a little bit more.
I absolutely do, because I think with action, adventure, thriller, there's so much going on around these people that you start rooting for them to get together too, because they've just been through all this stuff and all this emotional turmoil. So it's rooting for that character. But I think too, having romance in a thriller or action adventure gives us one of those breathe beats where we can slow down.
Yeah.
And then focus on maybe the couple talking over a meal or sitting side by side on the porch, and they're like, WTF, what the hell just happened,
Right.
But then they're also
that relief moment.
There might be a little electricity. And so it gives the watcher, and then in books, it gives the reader a breather, and it's a nice built-in breather.
You know what else I think? It's also, in those types of genre, it adds pressure because the romance is never solitary. And if it is, you're not paying it off very well, because if you build it out, then you can utilize the couple in various ways because somebody's going to want to try to save the other, right? There's this
Right.
added pressure in those, even, you have those nice levity moments like you were talking about, but I love that added pressure too. I love those ones that are built in right up front, like Cape Fear and stuff, where it's the family and it's the
Right.
pressure of all those things. I think that's also really quite good. But when it comes to um, fantasy, I think of it a little differently. I feel like, to me, for fantasy, if you take out all the romance efforts, I lose interest completely.
Really?
Thriller, not the same way for me. Like, you could pull that all out depending on what's going on. As long as the characters are strong, I'm in it. But in fantasy, I could, especially epic fantasies. I'm not talking romantasy. That's a different lane. I
Yes.
love that lane. But we're talking epic fantasies like Game of Thrones without all the drama of romance and relationships. I would be bored to tears.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that's interesting you say that because there's such a movement going on about how readers don't want romantasy anymore. They want the two separates. They
Yeah.
want the epic fantasy without the romance. I think it's just focusing then on the world building and I don't know what it
I
is
will
'cause
get bored to tears if the
I know,
world
isn't
building
that
is not
interesting?
epic. But
Right,
I have to have stakes. Again, to me, it just comes back to character motivation and that tie-in of
right,
intimacy for emotional stakes. Like, there doesn't need to be sex on page
right.
necessarily, not in that realm, but there has to be some tie-in of found family or family dynamics, right? That whole relationship, maybe not intimacy and romance, to carry me through, or I'm out of it. I have no desire.
Hmm. I
Because
think
even in Star Trek, like, we just went on,
yeah,
me and my husband just went on a marathon of watching Chris Pine and the
yeah, the
three.
new Star Treks, yeah.
Yeah, like, there's no huge romantic element outside of Spock. And
Right.
you're like, "Wait, what?" Which was kind of fun, but you don't see any of that. The relationships are all about the found family of the
Mhm.
team, right? And so I'm in it to win it. And plus the villain in number 2 was like the best villain ever. Um,
Oh,
Cumberbatch was, I
yeah.
don't know if you remember. Oh my God,
No.
he was the
Yes.
best con.
No, he was
um, but
amazing.
anyway, so those things I can be in it because even like Lord of the Rings, you have Arwen, right? You have like these elements that are personal and romantic built in. And then when they started to do the spinoffs, right? Oh gosh, I'm gonna get the title wrong because it's not the Wheel of Time. That's my other favorite one. The Rings of Power. Oh my gosh, that's all relationships. And I
I
love
think
it.
that angered the purists
I know, but get
because
over it. Like, it
really
made it so much better though, because Erwin had to come from somewhere, dude.
absolutely. No, you're preaching to the choir. I'm here to, like,
Yeah, I know.
things up for you. And
And I think romanticy is going to stay around for a while. I mean, that term just really got going in the last year and a half.
I don't think it's going anywhere, but I
Yeah.
do think there's, readers who love just the simplicity of the hero's journey. Truly, The
Yeah.
Hobbit is the hero's journey or the quest.
Mhm. It's a
And
little bit of
that's
both.
it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so adding then a romantic layer takes your protagonist off the quest in some readers' eyes. And I can see that point of view. I don't think romantasy is going anywhere, but I do think there's this push to bring back epic fantasy, epic hard sci-fi that
Yeah.
truly is the quest, the hero's journey, even the heroine's journey without romance, which I think is interesting. I think there's a push
Yeah.
for female protagonists without romance, which I'm never going to go for. But
I
because
don't
I think
mind
it's
it
interesting,
as long as I'm built into the relationship. So let's talk about before we get into subplots, because that's the other thing, because we're kind of leaning toward talking about the subplots. But Maverick, did you see that movie?
Yeah,
Right? I loved that the one pilot, did not have a romantic relationship to
I
any of the guys.
agree. I agree with
I
that.
loved it.
Yes. I think that's where romance didn't belong because I think that was something probably expected. At the
Yeah.
same time, it shows that women can be friends with men. And I,
And
you
do their
know,
jobs and do it
yeah.
well.
And there
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a romantic element because I mean, when I was in middle school, high school, I was a tomboy who kind of hung out with the guys because I was pretty nerdy. Hello. We're not gonna go into that. But I also grew up with these guys, so there wasn't romance because they all felt like my brothers.
Brothers. Yeah.
So in a way, it was like my found family, but they were all actually even at those ages, and some of them I know today, they're all gentlemen. Even if, back then too, it was like you could still get raunchy and make lewd jokes or something, but I never felt pressure. I never felt like I wasn't just one of the guys hanging, and I think that was so beautifully done in Maverick
Yeah.
because the romance between an older couple, which we're always rooting for, was there, and then you had the friendships,
Yeah.
even with the female.
Exactly. Yeah, I loved it too for all those reasons. And I'm all about the empowerment of women and breaking that glass ceiling, and her being, a Top Gun flight, person who had made it that far. And then further, I was just like, yeah, get it. you know, it's awesome.
I have to bring up one thing that pisses me off with
Oh no.
romance in action adventure,
Oh, hit
and
me.
listeners, I don't know if this bothers you, but the misplaced kiss. The kiss in the middle of action. I'm talking to
Oh,
you.
the world is coming down, but we're going to kiss first. Is that what
Right.
you mean? Okay,
Or
gotcha.
like right after Jurassic World, I'm talking to you because there was
Wait, I
chemistry.
don't think I didn't see the last two.
I, I'm not, no, just the first one
The first one,
with Chris
gosh.
Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yeah.
Those two.
Okay.
So they just survive a pterodactyl attack. She's picking him up off the floor after being pecked to death by pterodactyl, and then they kiss, and I'm like, "Stop, no. No
Yeah.
one's gonna do that."
You know what?
And it just felt forced and rushed, and it was just like, "Oh, by the way, these 2 like each other, so why don't we have him kiss right after his eyes were almost gouged out by a prehistoric dinosaur?" No,
Yeah.
that's not where you put
How
it.
romantic.
Right, no one's gonna do that. You're
Is that the
dying.
first kiss too between the two
Yes,
characters? Do you remember?
yes,
I don't remember.
it is,
Because
and
that's
that's
even
why
the
it's a
worst.
problem.
That's like the biggest worst. It should
No one wants
be
that.
more in that survival mode of completion and relaxation and, oh my God, versus just something hurried. I hate that too.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
it's like,
There
no.
was I can't remember. I want to say it was you know how they do parodies? Like me and my
Mhm.
husband love those. They're completely wrong in so many ways to watch, but it's our fun little time to watch those and just
Right,
laugh with abandon.
right.
And one of them, I can't remember which one it is, but it's making fun of various horror movies.
Mhm.
And apparently one of
Right.
the ladies gets like struck by a car and she's dying. She's pinned up against the tree. And this happens in a horror story. But the parody is the guy gets there in time and she's bleeding and out her mouth and it's horrible. She's just one last kiss.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
just one last kiss. And I'm like, ew. And of course me and my husband are like, would you do it? Would you do it? I don't know.
No.
Like maybe on the forehead. Yeah, it was just I love those when parodies really make fun of that stuff. You're
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, they got that
exactly.
wrong."
Yeah, because in action, adventure, thriller, there's a
Yeah,
time and a place, and it's not in the middle of the action. I'm sorry.
right,
So,
right.
yeah.
So you're really talking about, organically it happening, not being a forced situation,
Well,
right?
yeah, just somewhere it makes sense. Like, it made sense for these 2 at the end after they've survived everything, and it's the aftermath scenes. Those are the times when they should share a moment, not still in the middle of the
Yeah.
attack. No,
Yeah.
it doesn't work.
Yeah. The
It
world is
frustrates me.
crumbling around
I
behind
know.
you in 2
You're right.
minutes, and you're gonna
Yeah,
get a 1-minute kiss in.
right.
Smart.
And
Smart
then
move.
cue to pterodactyls. Get back to the pterodactyl.
Natural selection for a reason. I'm just gonna
Every
say that too.
right. Everything about the first 2 Jurassic Parks, those are masterpieces, but that's a whole other I'm 12 inside, that's why I can talk dinosaurs, like, also. Like
Well, I'm a nerd. I can talk Star Wars and Star Trek as the day is long.
Yes, yes,
There we go. Oh
absolutely.
gosh. Okay, so let's talk about romance as a subplot superpower
Mm,
because I also think, well, we were just talking about Maverick, so maybe we stay with that lane, right? That was a subplot specifically for Maverick the character in my interpretation of it. Let's see if you agree with this.
mhm,
So that he could come around to knowing that he doesn't have to continue his journey of being a flight captain for the rest of his life. Like
right.
he has people that he can be with who love him. Like he could choose a new path and it not be so scary. And that's kind of how I saw his romance with Penny, which I loved because Penny was mentioned in the very first Top Gun, if you ever went back to watch it.
I'll have to
Or
go back because I missed that. I was like,
yeah, it was mentioned like in the bar, like wasn't she the general's daughter or something
I think
like that?
so, but
Yeah.
I had not seen Top Gun in years, and so I
Yeah.
was like I was a little lost because I was like, "Penny who?" But it was there.
Yeah, it's
Like
only mentioned. It's not like you ever saw her or anything
right.
like that. It was just a quick bite of narrative um between him and Goose or whatever.
Yeah.
But it organically showed a character arc in decision. Now, if you took that all away, right, and
Mhm.
you just went with the character arc decision of what he was doing with Rooster, Goose's son, I think it still would have worked, but it wouldn't have been as powerful. He
Right.
had a lot more to lose than just Rooster at that
Mhm.
point in time. So the stakes were higher. Again, pressure, which I love.
Mhm.
And the stakes being higher, right? So it forces emotional choices and then you as the reader or watcher in whatever form of entertainment you're getting this in, you feel that pressure of choice, but you see why they make it,
Right. Yeah,
right?
and you wonder there was a moment where I was wondering if they were gonna get together. I think that's always that, layered tension because there was a point where, like, maybe not, and
Maybe
maybe
not, because she was sassy about it, and I kind of love
yeah,
that about her,
yeah. I
right?
really liked her character
Yeah.
and just how, he was the one that had to jump out the window,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
So, usually it's the guys that's like, "Beat it." Like,
Yeah.
he wants to scream. So, I thought there was a lot of things really beautifully done about that movie,
Yeah.
but it showed how a romance and it wasn't complicated either. It didn't consume a lot of the movie. In such a short time, you really got what was happening and knew what was at stake, and then we're rooting for them. And
Yeah.
isn't that what we want in our romantic subplots,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was just thinking because I'm reading so much romance right now, I was like, let me think about a book that it's more of a subplot, and I was having a really hard time. Well, I'll ask Angela because I haven't. I've been reading solid romances. So
Mhm.
for me, I would have to go more toward TV
Mhm.
and things like that because I've just been devouring romance for
Yeah.
like the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I take that back. Okay. So I did read we had Dan Wilcox on, and I did
Yeah.
read a horror, Mate, and it does have a subplot. I take that back. It has a subplot in it, and it causes it's a little unhinged. Maybe horror's like that though, too. I
Yeah.
don't read a lot of horror, and I know romantasy can have some really unhinged
Right.
romance and relationship elements. So, and that put a lot of pressure into. Um, are there any books that you recall that you're like, oh wow, this was really done well as a subplot to put that pressure on book wise?
I haven't,
Yeah.
because when I was writing superhero sci-fi and just learning from action adventure, Clive Cussler, for example, I've read a lot of, and his is more historical. And there's almost like people that could be together. It's like more of like there's no stakes romance subplot. I think that's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a subplot of romance that has high stakes and low stakes where they just sort of get busy and
Yeah.
make out and they just like each other. I guess you would say James Bond, right? Like, it's there, there's a little romance and a little diddling around, but there's no stakes. You're not rooting for them.
Not to stay together, not
Right,
knowing his background, right?
right,
It's
and
really
that
rare.
I think in, like, action adventure, that's how the romance was as a subplot. It wasn't any
It's
you just
superficial.
yeah, you knew they were gonna maybe, like, have sex, and then at the end, probably not gonna stay together. But it still satisfied something, but there wasn't this, like, emotional tension wrapped around it because
Yeah.
that
To
wasn't
me,
the
it's like
focus.
a character flaw when I think of James Bond,
Yeah.
like 007, like that was his character profile, like the ladies' man and getting all the
Yeah.
women and
I say it was he knew he might not live, so why have a long-term relationship? That's where I went with his character.
I think they tried to change it up a little bit with the newer James Bonds. Um,
Casino Royale
yeah,
did
that's the
that,
one.
where they showed
Mhm.
him the scene in the shower. My heart, like, it was after the action. Now, I thought it was a little awkward where he was, like, sucking on her fingers because I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't know why
They
that."
hadn't been through COVID times yet.
I guess, I'm just
That's
like,
funny.
"Ew, okay, I guess that's romantic," but then he puts his arm around her and holds her, and then you're just like, "This is amazing," because it showed a crack in the armor, and it showed him really caring. That I loved. Since there's a new Bond girl every movie,
I know.
except for
Well,
the
they
last
had
movie, it
the
was terrible.
one that was in a Casino Royale, and then she was kind of into like like little
Yeah,
flashbacky
flashbacks,
things,
yeah, yeah,
which
yeah,
I thought was great to carry. And that's the thing about subplots, to really carry that emotional tension, because that's what layers it in, right? That whole pressure and that tension.
yeah.
So I
No,
love that.
my
Yeah.
question then is, because James Bond is more of a male action hero,
Yeah.
I think that romance kinda subplot is fine for male viewers and male fans, and that's not a
Yeah.
criticism of men, I just think that that's
It's
kind
more
of like
titillizing to them.
yeah, it's
I
like
said it.
you said
Yeah.
titillizing, heard it here first,
Yeah.
but, you know, I think for them, there's still, like, the chase, the getting her to she resists a little bit, he flirts, she flirts, he resists, so there's kind of that, and I think
Push and pull.
there's a little push and pull, and then
Yeah.
once he finally, gets her to
Yeah.
canoodle with him,
Canoodle.
it's my favorite word, um, then then it's like, "Okay, it's over. That's
Yeah.
it. That's cool."
And usually there's some drama around her, of
Right,
course, right?
something. Yeah, or she's
Either she was
secretly
the
the
villain
villain.
or with the I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, it was always like she was part of the bad
Right.
group or whatever, or not, or she
Yeah,
was just an innocent bystander, or she was Halle Berry. She was on the good side, but undercover.
right.
Like
Exactly.
all the
Yeah.
things, right?
Mhm.
So Yeah.
Yeah. So you
I
have that sort of romantic subplot in action adventure where or I've seen it in thriller too. Also, sidebar, can anyone hear my bulldog snoring loudly?
no. Maybe you have the echo canceling on or something. I can't hear it.
Good. Well, I've got 2 guests behind me, and it's my bulldogs, and they're snoring loudly, which is still
Okay, now I heard it.
romantic.
I love it. They're like, "This is what we
Yeah,
think of
some sound
romance."
effects. Yeah, putting them to sleep, which
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that says. So, I think how you do it, how you put that subplot in is just what you prefer too, but I love well-meaning romance and action adventure. I think that is the chef's kiss to a good action adventure.
Yeah, I do too. I think you have to really layer in the emotions of it for it to have the biggest payoff for your story. Game of Thrones, I think if you pulled out the romance, even the unhinged ones, which there are a lot because kids are getting married off to really bad people. If you throw those things out though, like they're the payoffs are less and they're part of the character development, character arcs of healthy relationships, bad relationships, unhinged relationships, family relationships. Like think that was done so well. A, so many families to keep track of. But B, once you kind of are in that world, you kind of are immersed in it, right?
Mhm.
And no one would say Game of Thrones is a romance ever. It is definitely a fantasy, right? So to me, I just think subplots really teach you, you know, how to layer in that emotion, how to keep the tension. You can utilize those tools as a writer too. Because if you're like, oh, I need more tension here, well, then screw up the relationship, put pressure on it. Make someone say something like, sure, go ahead and kill her, even though the character
Oh,
doesn't really mean it,
right.
and then he's going to try to save the day, but have her go, what the hell? You know, all the things like you can play with those things really well. So I think subplots in relationships and emotion just add more depth to character because at the end of the day, I am just that person, and I know you are too. Character is story. You
Mhm.
don't have a story without the characters. So,
Exactly.
yeah. Okay, so let's turn into main plot because I want to talk about this because there are some things I know that you're going to blush about, but
Oh,
you do
no.
really well.
Let me take this.
That you do really well. First of all, there are some romance demands with regards to building a satisfying romance in my mind. That's around character flaws, emotional
Mm.
wounds, and the growth arc as a person together as a couple. I love seeing people grow in their individual characters, but then they grow even more together.
Mhm.
Like there's that aspect of, I know people are always like, oh, opposites attract and this and
Mhm.
that. Not necessarily. There has to be a reason for that. So I want to talk about your newest book that's out
Gosh.
because I think you do really well. Not that, first of all, I love the first book because there are great character flaws there, but I think it's heavier and deeper in your current book because it's military based, right?
Yes.
And I love that that's kind of in the background and also a core part of your character, but your main character, Roxanne, her emotional wound and character flaw to me overrides that just a little bit because I'm in it with her. So, talk to me. Did you do that intentionally? Did you think, oh, when I'm building this romance, I'm going to think about the two main characters and what flaws and wounds they're going to have together that would be quite because they're kind of opposite,
They
and then you
are.
bring them together and then you can kind of see, yeah, they're on the same trajectory in their own growth. So I'm just kind of curious about that. I know I'm putting you on the spot, however, you do this really good and I think you do it intuitively, so I don't know if you know that you're doing it. But I wanted to ask.
Well, first, thank you. That's just That just makes my day. It does make me blush a little. So, yeah, I think I have to, no matter what story I'm writing, no matter what genre, I have to find their wounds so we can heal them with love, right?
Yeah.
So,
And the right person.
yeah. And I think that's why I'm so attracted to writing slightly older characters because not that you cannot have an emotional wound in your 20s, but you've been through so much more at 40 versus 20 that it kind of layers upon itself and you have more time to have stuff happen to you that you have to overcome. So yes, I start with the couple's emotional wounds and how they either like are similar or a little different so that they can work together to heal each other. And you have to be careful though, because there was a time when I was going way too deep. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, Angela, this is a romance. You
You're
have
going
to
down the
lighten
rabbit
this
hole.
up a little bit. Okay. That's where you can add humor, something you do beautifully. But you can't make it too heavy or too dark because then it goes into like something that should be a different genre. But yeah, I need to know what's happened to them and then I can kind of write the story around them.
Do you find yourself to, let me ask a follow-up question. When you're reading romance, are you able to pick out character flaws and wounds up front quicker now that you're writing it?
Yeah, and I think when I
Yeah, me
put
too.
a book down, it means that there wasn't enough for me to like or identify or root for or feel like
Yeah.
there's any depth to the character because there's been several romances and these are huge romances and they're working because they're bestsellers. So it's not that it's just that it's
Yeah.
not for me because if a character feels like really overtly shallow and I can't identify
Mhm.
what might be the wound here or what they're overcoming, then I kind of get bored,
Yeah.
you know?
And I have to admit, writing short, I can't get into wounds.
And
It
that's what I'm going to
yeah.
ask you. You know,
Mm-mm.
but I will say for you, you still have wonderfully delicious steaks and you've been
Yeah.
able to put that in such a short where people are still like your books still have teeth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think I tried the emotional wound with Bitter Tart Temptations more
Mhm.
so than any of my others. I do love to challenge myself. I am a masochist a little bit in that
Oh,
in that way that I'm like, "Oh, well, let me try this because it's never been done. Oh, let me try this." And then I write myself in a corner. I'm like, "This is not gonna work. How do I get out of this?" So, in short stories, you have to tell a lot
mhm.
those emotional backgrounds because you don't have the space to show it. And the times you wanna show it, you have to have your 2 characters together growing or I've found for me, I can't pull it off. I'll get way too wordy and it's really my word count really starts to rise, and that's not my intention
Right,
of these books. So it's really tough. The best I can do is really character flaws. I
right.
just can't get into emotional wounds at all. I do think novels that really stick with me have really good emotional wounds. But it's funny because I love that you said 2D too, because there are times I just want, and I'm so guilty of this because I call myself a B writer. Sometimes I just want that superficial, silly book as long
Right,
as it's not 400, 600 pages, because I am not gonna finish it unless
right.
it has really hooky end chapters, but sometimes I just love those, and most of my sports romances that I
Yes.
love are so superficial, but what I gravitate to is the found family part and
Yeah.
the relationship with the teams. Like, I
Yes.
can't get enough of it, and I
Right.
know exactly why I'm gravitating towards it. I find that really interesting
But
because you
I
do that really well, and I thought, "Well, readers should hear that," because I think it's important. It's not just something you do in romance to write really good characters. You have those things, but how I think what's unique for your romance is that there's there's an attraction element or something pulling them together whether that's a physical thing first and then they get to know each other, which I think is really done well in that second book because
Mm.
they're so opposite.
Yeah.
Or you think they are, but one
Right.
person's betraying the opposite really hardcore
Right.
than they should because she's hurt. So, I kind of love that. I kind of love that journey. You can't do that with short, but I don't see that often. I hate to
Right.
say that. I don't see that very often right now.
So I have many follow-ups, but what's a character flaw to you versus an
Yeah.
emotional wound? What makes something just a flaw
So
versus
a
a
wound
wound?
to me is something that happened to you that changed your makeup. So, for example, I'll just talk about my story. Rhett in Bitter Tart Temptations, he was left at the altar
Mhm.
and his pregnant fiance had lost their child and was like, I'm not in it.
Right.
And he didn't date after that.
Yeah.
That is an emotional wound. He didn't think he was good enough. He wasn't able to keep her, and they didn't stay in touch, all these things. And now he has this young something because it's an age gap who's like, you're everything. And he's like, no, ma'am. I don't think you know. I'm grumpy and who do you think you are? And she's Miss Sunshine. So that's a different. Now, part of his flaw is him being grumpy and
Okay.
he's
Yeah.
putting on an
So
act.
flaws we can say are more surface.
Surface,
It's like
yeah,
an iceberg. So the
yeah,
flaws are the tip of the iceberg and the emotional wounds everything below the surface.
yeah, that happen from various types of trauma or experience or choices you made that changed how you see the world. Because it doesn't always have to be physical. It could just be a fundamental thing that changed the way you see the world.
Right. And that's
So,
where I think you
yeah.
teetered though. I think you did that beautifully in Bitter Tart Temptations because you showed such a three-dimensional character in such a short time, but you
And
didn't
some
weigh it
people
down
did not like it though. They were like, this should be longer. And I'm like, you're not wrong. But the purpose of these
because
books
they
is not to
fell
be
in love
longer.
with your character and wanted
Yeah.
more of him, which is this is always good.
And the
Um,
pacing of that, like, sometimes I
yeah.
think too, in novels, you have the breadth to breathe, to
Mhm.
pace those things,
Mhm.
so that there could be a pause, not necessarily a third act breakup, but, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm just gonna say that now as a writer, because sometimes you need that in order to propel the conclusion or some form of that. May not be as severe, but some type of conflict in which, there's a resolution towards the end. But I think for short romance, just in my little short vein, like you just can't have that and move the story forward in a
Mhm.
satisfying way, especially
Mhm.
I find to try to keep people hooked, to try
Yeah.
to devour it in one setting, that's really hard to do. And I'm sure other people do it better. Like our friend Holly
No.
Line does really well in her
Well, she
fantasy
does,
ones.
but that's it.
Yeah.
Only one.
No, I mean, there are several. Honestly, there are. Abby Jimenez, one of
Oh,
my
yeah.
favorite books
Yeah,
she
she's
did
so
that was
great.
short is called The Risk Fall. Have you read that one? It's short
I haven't.
and it's really good. She does that well and she pulls it together well. But again, you have to tell in order to shorten those areas to show while they're together and growing,
Yeah.
or you run out of it. So, one thing I want to also talk about is chemistry
Mhm.
between characters. Chemistry reveals a couple of things. So I was thinking in my mind, chemistry reveals power dynamics. This is where I love a good push and pull. This is the whole, flirting, not flirting. Are they flirting or are they just being themselves? Like the push and pull, the power dynamics, boundaries that get set. Sometimes they don't, but I love it when they do.
Mhm.
And also that like the chemistry reveals values, their style and how they communicate, what they will accept, what they won't accept, kind of thing. And I think again, between Roxanne, I think you can see those power dynamics shifting. She had all the power
Yeah.
in the beginning. And then it went just like that. It just flipped around. And I kind of love it when the women have all the power in the very, very beginning, but I love it when they don't completely lose it and
Right.
it's more of a couple power thing.
It's kind of like Duke saying, "You know what? I'm not really putting up with your shit. If this
Yeah.
is what you want, good." And I think, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of shocked Roxanne because she was like, "Wait a minute. Wait, I do like you. Hmm.
Yeah.
You can't ignore me." But that's what
Yeah.
she asked for. And then it was because I think that's relatable. I've been in, when I was dating, there were times when I had some power and then this guy was not gonna put up with my bullshit because I was not sure and there was too much push and pull and I didn't
Yeah.
know. And then once the script got flipped on me, I was like, "Oh, wow, he's got
Right.
power. I kinda like that." These are 20 something romance brains, but I just you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's my favorite. I think Amy Dawes does this really well, Candy Steiner. I think Megan Quinn does it really well, the whole power dynamics and boundaries. I really gravitate towards that, and I think that it really develops the chemistry. When you understand how chemistry is developed, and as writers, if I'm speaking in a foreign tongue to you, just kind of break it down what chemistry reveals about a couple. Because I think it's really interesting because you also see this not only in romance, but in your other favorite books and other genres.
Right.
There's a power dynamic. I was just talking about Star Trek between Captain Kirk and Spock.
Mhm.
There, and their friendship. There's boundaries, there's values, there's a communication style, there's that whole thing. It happens with all your relationships that you're building as a writer. So if you're like, oh, I could tighten that up a little bit more, just look at how your characters interact with each other because that establishes how they move forward and how they grow too. I think you do that really well. That was one of my favorite things about Roxanne because she had all the power up front, all of it. And I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be fun. How's he gonna, like, make her go, 'Oh, shit?'"
Yeah.
And
This
he
is a good
does.
time. Yeah.
She does. She takes a little look back and it's like, "Wait a minute."
So let
But
me ask you then, because I know your characters all have such great chemistry. And how do you do that? I think that's challenging to come up with couple after couple that has great chemistry. And you've done it so far 6 times, 7 that I've read.
yeah, 7 now,
So
and some
like,
that
how do
aren't
you
published yet.
right? You are all published. I
Yeah.
get the inside track. Sorry, reader.
Yeah,
But
I
you know what
think
I'm saying? Like, how do you keep that chemistry so fresh? Because that's where I sometimes struggle. And I'm so blocked on this book too, because I'm like, how do I make these two people? I need to know who they are, but how do they have chemistry? And I think maybe age gap for me is harder. How do you find that chemistry? Because it's the woman who's younger. So we don't want her to come off as bratty
yeah.
and we don't want the guy to be too get off my lawn, you know? But you do it so well because each of your characters, that's like huge for them. And that's it again
So I
in
think too,
short
we
time.
try too hard as romance writers. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, everybody knows it's a romance. So it's two people falling in love. So if you focus on those two people and what's going to connect them. So I tend to do this. This is an inside scoop for your ears only or eyes if you happen to be watching is I have a specific outline I've been using that I kind of figured out I was intuitively doing in my first series, Sweethearts, Scones, and Stories. And I have pivotal moments of connection within the first quarter, the mid corner, and the last corner of my book. So I kind of break it up. And so if I have 12 chapters, you're definitely going to see that pivot turn point up front where either one character that's pining for the other is going to be like, huh, okay. Very
Right.
quite clear you would see that in Sweet and Spiteful Rivalries. By the middle, both are kind of committed to
Mhm.
something's happening. And
Right.
then at the end, it has to happen. It has to be consensual and mutual and happen. Holiday Hearts Unwrapped, what I found really interesting to me is, well, I married my best friend. So,
He's
I
amazing.
I love that it was a best friends to lover, that they had known each other
Mhm.
since they were really little. And I wanted to have a really big misunderstanding,
Mhm.
because she had been pining for him the whole time. What I knew I needed to do as an older couple was not just have a complete miscommunication, because I hate those tropes.
Well, and so do readers.
Yeah, but I had to have some point of decision,
Mhm.
and the part where they have to have grown-up conversations. I think a lot of writers avoid grown-up conversations in a book, thinking that it'll be boring, but if you do it in dialogue and pithy and emotionally driven, because I don't know about you, but I can't sit down if I'm angry with my husband and breathe through my nose and talk
Yeah, no
softly
one does
and
that.
have an adult come. No, I'm going to be
No.
emotional and I'm going to
Right.
cry and I'm going to yell about it. And maybe in 3 minutes later, I'll be like, okay, I was completely irrational or whatever.
Right.
But like, not in the moment. That's not happening. So for me, I kind of almost write, and I know we talked with Jeff Elkins about this. I kind of write my first draft looks a lot like a screenplay. It's a
Mm.
lot of dialogue because I'll just think
Right.
about how would that conversation happen
Mhm.
and why would it happen? You know, for me, I just pull those in really quickly in how I write. So when anybody is like, I don't think this couple is connecting, just think of it in points of pivot. Like, is this the point where they're coming, and maybe it's too soon because I did that in my novel and I had to give it breath. Is this the pivot time? Not necessarily the inciting incident or the meet cute. Those are different things. This is where one character or both characters is like, oh, I agree. And then the middle, yes, definitely agree. And at the end, absolutely agree.
Mhm.
Like we should be together. This
Yeah,
is
exactly.
so I think sometimes we make it too hard as romance writers because at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, it's romance. My readers are expecting a couple to get together.
Right. Like, let's not overcomplicate this. Yeah.
Yeah, I try not to, but I do have these little goalposts that I try to hit. And it doesn't matter. I've learned
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what trope it is.
Right.
It doesn't matter what micro tropes. Oh, that's a different topic for another day.
Yeah.
But like all the things in
Mhm.
between, as long as I kind of hit those goalposts within those, and you'll see some of my chapters are really shorter and some are a little longer, but I hit kind of that area every time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
how I do it.
when you were telling this to me, just honestly, I was like, I think it's a great idea, but do readers want to read about a real couple? You know what I'm saying? Because I
Yeah,
felt like that was more real couple stuff because you have how many marriages or people we know with a marriage that veers off course for whatever reason and they either come back together or they
they
separate.
don't.
That's
Yeah.
real world. It's not the
Yeah, I took a
fantasy,
risk with that book.
you know.
Again, masochist, and was like, I can do it.
But people I've seen some of your reviews and they're loving it. So it's
Yeah.
like maybe it's because it's so relatable because
I also think I had a feed in though, because Forbidden Love and Lattes, you meet Dalton in that book.
right.
He's a very protective brother.
Mhm.
And you can see if his best friend's a female, he's very protective of her too.
Right.
Right? Like people kind of, if you were a fan and you did read these you didn't have to, but you kind of get, I think my readers were pumped because they knew he was coming. So
Right.
I think that led into it a little bit. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm full of it. Who knows? But I have to admit, sometimes when I read series and I know one of my characters that I've read in somebody else's book is coming with their own book, like
Right.
so guilty with Megan Quinn and
Mhm.
Candy Steiner on those types of things. Like I'll be like, oh, I could skip that hockey book. I don't really like this person. I'm
Right.
getting that book. That's the
Right,
coach. Are
exactly.
you kidding me? Auto buy. Anyway, so like, like you get kind of hooked in when you do those kind of things. So I don't know if it was that or who knows.
I think it's because you still have I think what's dreamy about it is the holiday atmosphere,
Yeah,
because aren't we all just a little dreamier during the well,
I
not if
think
you have
so.
small kids and it's just, like, family time. Yes, I get it. Like, there's some holidays that are, like, so
It's
stressful, but, like,
escapism.
still
Yeah,
holidays feel like, I think
magical.
magical, especially,
Yeah,
like, for me, Christmas, there's lights everywhere and Christmas music, and then you get into New Year's, and
yeah.
then third one is Valentine's Day, so it still feels like this dreamy holiday season, and I think that's what was genius of putting it in that backdrop, that still brings in that sort of fantasy dreaminess that people liked. If you would have had it, like, break up at the summer barbecue, that may be too
Yeah,
much. Yeah,
yeah, probably, probably. Yeah, I agree. I
or,
agree. I
like,
think,
March 16th,
yeah, I
you
think there's
know?
something dreamy about holiday romances for sure. I know some people don't love Hallmark. I kind of love it, even though it's very predictable.
Well, it's the formula.
But
There's a
it's a
formula.
formula and you can come into it at any time and be like, yeah, I know what's I love when there is a little twist sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of was like, that was in the back of my mind. But I also, there's a show called Sweet Magnolias that was a big part of my inspiration for
Right.
Peachwood Grove. I was just like, yeah, it's Christmas time.
It is.
This is what we're
Absolutely.
doing. Gosh, we're getting heavy now. Okay, so I have one more question.
Okay.
Okay. This is a good one. Why do you think romance gets dismissed though? Because
Well,
I think, okay, here,
yeah, you
and
go.
I don't want to be ranty, but I do think there's gender bias in
Right,
romance
right,
as a genre, as a readership. But I also think there's this emotional labor that's undervalued in romance. And in the subgenres and the things we're talking about, I think it gets
right.
very undervalued. But if you're really good at romance and you like thrillers, I feel like you could just nail it in subgenres and things of that nature. But why do you think romance gets dismissed?
I think there's a lot of stereotypes around it. I think especially it depends on your age, right? Because I grew up on the Harlequin
Quinn.
novels. Danielle Steele was everywhere, right? Those sort of, like, sensationalized soap opera more, and I'm not saying that there aren't soap opera feeling romance of today, but even, like, I was so against romance because if it felt like The Notebook, which felt, like, really mushy to me as, like,
And then I was
not
like, no,
interested.
no, watch the hating game.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
liked that, where it's
Yeah.
a little brutal. So I think romance is it's starting to come into its own with more fresh stories. There's a lot of indie authors who are kind of breaking barriers at this point.
Yeah.
I think I'm I think it's always gonna dismiss if there's a certain type of reader who is like, "I want Lord of the Rings without any romance," right?
It's not Lord of the
Or,
Rings.
"I want Game of Thrones, I wish there was no romance in Game of Thrones." There's always gonna be people like that who will dismiss it because, I mean, I think romance kind of also puts a little mirror on your love life, right? Where you are. And maybe there's certain people who don't wanna feel things,
Or be
unrequited love.
jealous of those things.
Yeah, exactly. Those are all
Yeah.
contributing factors to why it gets dismissed. Why do you think it gets dismissed?
Well, again, I think that there's some bias about it, but I also think that it's not getting as dismissed as it used to be.
Yeah, agreed.
I think it's come around full circle that, hey, romance is a powerhouse in the industry. It's more than 80 to 90% of all genres read. We're now having romance bookstores open up all over. It's so fun. And I just think people are loving the escapism. I mean, at the end of the day, honestly, I don't want to watch a reality TV show. I don't want
Right.
to see the news, and I don't want to read a thriller that's too close to home. Like,
Right. Oh, exactly.
I
No.
don't. I want to escape and finding people, growing towards love and relationships and finding each other and their happily ever after. I'm all about the HEA. Like, bring it on. So for me, I think romance isn't easy. It has a preciseness to it that we've been talking about all night. It just gets kind of a bad rap because when you say romance, the first thing that pops out of most people's mouth when I say I'm a romance author, oh, you
Mhm.
write smut. Well,
Oh, yeah. That's
okay.
next episode.
And I just want to say, okay, okay, it's kind of like everybody poops. Everybody poops. you know, Everybody has smut in their life. Right? There's various degrees of it, of what romance is on page in terms of intimacy. And I love explaining that to a 78-year-old. But nonetheless, I think that's where it gets a little pigeonholed
Yeah.
is old adages of that kind of discussion. But do just kind of a close up here. What are some things that you think about when you write romance? What are the things you get excited about?
The journey, the tension, the lust phase. When there
Mm,
is a payoff, I'm like, "Oh, okay, they got together." I love the phase when they're flirting, where there's
yeah,
tension, there's maybe one first kiss, and then you don't know what's gonna happen. I love the buildup so
yeah,
much. That's what excites me about writing romance is trying to craft that perfect buildup so that when there is a payoff, it's worth it. It's worth
yeah.
the wait. So I've had so many readers say I'm the slow burn person. And I'm like, "Really? That you consider this
Mm,
a slow burn?" But yes, I'm doing slow burns that you gotta work for, but they'll be worth your wait. So, I get excited about that slow burn.
yeah,
What about you?
yeah. Cupid's Sweet Conspiracy is a mutual pining, and it's definitely a slower burn, but I think it's my spicier one
Right.
as well. So I don't know how I did that, but I felt like it was spicier. I don't know. We'll see what my readers say. For me, when I sit down to write romance, I love falling in love all over
Yeah,
again with a new couple. I
exactly.
just love it. I'm like, how am I going to get these people together? What's it going to look like? I'm already thinking about like how my town is growing. And so to me, it's who's the next person moving into town? Or do I start with the police force? Do I go into the school? It's like fun open door opportunities. So I just love, which is super cheesy, but there you
Oh
go.
my
I'm a
gosh.
cheesy girl.
Cheesers. Yeah,
I mean, it makes the world go round,
it
right?
does. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, this was so much fun.
This was great.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for hanging out on our After Dark. Next month on After Dark, we're opening the door on a topic writers love to whisper about spice. Why it works, why sometimes it doesn't, and how foreplay, conflict, and emotional tension set the stage long before the clothes come off. Okay, so these monthly episodes are our space to talk honestly, think deeper, and get a little more candid about romance. It's just us and our author next door subscribers. So if you want to catch next month's episode and more, you need to click the link in the description and sign up because it's free. Till next time, keep writing, keep doing.
We'll see ya. Thanks for joining us this month for the After Dark conversation.
We'll see you next month right here after hours.